Book 101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's an author, filmmaker, and of course, live in martial arts. Thrive in imagination other than Mr. Michael Mandaville.
Hello.
Welcome, Mr. Michael, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Sure. Well, I do write books and I work in the film industry. I have worked in primarily as a producer on feature films, and that includes all the Taken movies, Taken 1, 2, and 3 here in the United States, as well as films like American History X, Havoc, some television, etc., and also directed a couple indie features. And I certainly like to write.
Yes. Right. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Michael. Thank you for sharing your talents to the world. So today let's talk about the writing process of all your books. So tell us, uh, what is or looking back at your first book versus your most recent, what is the single biggest way your writing process has transformed and what did you have to unlearn?
Well, let's see. That's a great question. I think one thing is that I have been helped along by technology, particularly in terms of initially when I started writing books, it was on a typewriter, believe it or not. And then, of course, you graduated into writing on something like Microsoft Word and pounding it out there. And recently, of course, there's more technology and great tools like Scrivener as well as Plotter, which really allows one to look at the big picture when you're crafting the plot. And as that plot uh, gains momentum, it's easier to work in terms of the big cards. And I think that's a very important key is to be able to use these particular tools and to keep embracing them. It also speeds up one's thinking.
Interesting, Mr. Michael. Across all your books, which is one personal ritual or habit, specifically or a specific time of day, a particular beverage or walking session that has remained a non-negotiable part of your creative process?
Well, I usually get up very early in the morning, and that's where I like to start writing right away. A lot of times, the day before or the night before, I will have a few questions that I'll ask myself, write them down, and while I'm sleeping, I get some answers. So, in that particular process, I am, I guess, writing while I'm sleeping, as it were. And that's a writer's uh, drive to actually make use of all the time one can possibly use it for. So that's, I think, a very important part of it. I like to write in the morning. I'm not a midnight writer. I'm too tired by then. So that's really my favorite technique to do, and I've always adhered to that.
Mr. Michael, how has your writer's toolbox, the physical and the digital tools you use for outlining, drafting, and editing, evolved from book to book? And what have you settled on as your ideal setup?
I have always used a lot of physical writing instruments. So whether it's notepads or Just the act, I think, of having a pen in your hand and the ability to physically move with the pen adds a lot of connectivity to the brain. And a lot of that has to do with doodling and drawing different boxes, different things, some nonsensical, some outrageous, but then all of a sudden it leads you down a little path of consideration, something about a plot, a character, a movement, a piece of dialogue. And one thing I have done is started using from those physical pads, I started using something called a Remarkable, which is a writing pad, but it just does one thing. It just is about writing. So it's not like an iPad that can do 50 things well. This Remarkable does one thing great. And I really like that a lot. And so I've actually started using that quite a bit together, still with a few little notebooks that I carry around with me, or I also integrate between my notes on my phone and the notes on my Mac computer so that I can make use of last minute thinking and the idea that you never want to forget a tidbit. So I've organized that and they synchronize up. Then I cut and paste those into the new document and I'm off to the races.
Interesting, Mr. Michael. Where do your books truly begin? Is it always with the core concept, character, a question, or a specific scene? Can you trace the origin point of view over different books?
Essentially, I think I always start with the question, what if? And I get an intriguing moment about that. A piece of history is a lot of the conjecture that rolls around in my head. And I ask myself, for example, in the Stealing Thunder series, the central premise is uh, started about these islands in the East China Sea and the South China Sea. They're in dispute between Japan and China, uh, the Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, etc. And it intrigued me to where those islands would be used and manipulated to start a coup in China, as well as a plot against the president of the United States. So, how would you actually manufacture something like that? That's the starting plot device. And in the other ones too, it also becomes a question of what if and a little hole you go down. In the case of Murder in the City of Light, I had read an article that actually had to do with an underground music uh, rave that was taking place in some of the catacombs in France. In which case, I was very intrigued by that. And apparently, it was a not a small rave. There was like two, three, 400 people there. They had a bar in the catacombs. They had a movie theater that was showing old movies, classical movies, and of course, a fair amount of drinking and drugs, probably. But it was very interesting because they actually had it set up where if anybody intruded on their little passage going into the catacombs, they had a motion triggering device that would start a dog barking. And I thought, boy, these people really went to a lot of trouble to hide themselves under what is called it's right across from the Eiffel Tower. It's the Trocadero, and it was under there. So that kind of started me on examining the catacombs, the people that lived there, and then coming up with this bit of a fantastical plot about somebody planting a murder and planning one.
Mr. Michael, are you a meticulous outliner who knows the ending before you begin, or do you discover the story as you write?
Oh, I'm definitely an outliner. I found a couple tools with that. Like I said before, I use Scrivener, and also I've been using one called Plotter. And indeed, I like to have something to aim for. I like to have a target so that I know which direction things are going. I'm still open to discovering things along the way. And I think that's very important for writing because you do get inspiration and enthusiasm and creativity that's spontaneous. And that's also the fun part of discovery. So you can, it's kind of like a drive. You probably, let's say, you might drive from Los Angeles to New Orleans or something, and you have a route planned, but at the same time, there's little intriguing bits where you go, let's go over here for a little bit and see what that is, or what's over there. And you might have to be forced to take a different road because of road conditions as well. So it combines both a degree of planning and certainty, and at the same time, being open to having spontaneous experiences. I think it's kind of like General Eisenhower in World War II said, you could plan the battle, but don't battle the plan. So, discovery and a target.
A discovery and a target. That's wow, amazing, Mr. Michael. So, how do you tackle the overwhelming nature of a book length project? Do you break it down by word count, by chapters, or by compiling specific units of thought?
Usually, I start with chapters, and depending on the particular project, I have a new book coming out in January, and the Murder in the City of Light also. Both of them, I tried to adhere between 8 and 10 chapters. I also think that makes it very doable and interesting for a possibility of a TV show. And insofar as that goes, each of the particular chapters, I started looking at this next book coming in January to have a opening hook, a six acts, and then basically have a cliffhanger. Now that's a bit like a episode for television in a way, but it also added a certain dynamic element of writing because I was thinking, wow, how would this translate to television for film streaming? And I think that's kind of an exciting way, to write that a thriller where you want some fast pace, uh, cut out the boring bits kind of thing. And so I started kind of using that in these last couple books. And that also made it a little dynamic. I definitely am very much into history, geography, the geopolitical world. And so sometimes I could really lay it on thick in terms of one of those topics. So it helps me be a little more mindful of keeping the pace lively and a lot of forward momentum.
How do you go about finding or listening for the unique narrative voice for each new book? Is it intuitive process or a deliberate construction?
I would say I start with a character and give some formative sensibilities about what that character is interested in. And at the same time, uh, particularly in my book, Murder in the City of Light, the character who is this woman who's at the American embassy, she's elderly and they can't seem to get rid of her. She doesn't want retirement and she basically knows way too many secrets in the embassy. So she has some degree of leverage over them, I'd say. Just, I don't want to retire and you don't want to make me. And what was really interesting about her and fascinating is that I needed a scene that was 3 or 4 pages to explain some dialogue, uh, plot points through some dialogue. And research she was doing. And what happened is, she just kept speaking, and she wasn't going to be quiet in my head. So I wound up writing, I think, I'd say 12, 13 pages. And then I had to cut it way back because she kept speaking to me. And that's kind of the fun part when all of a sudden the voice takes off and you have a character that comes alive right on the page into your head and goes back and forth and back and forth. And so I know one person that read the book and enjoyed it and found her a very is an older gentleman. So he goes, "Oh man, I'd like to date her. She really came alive for me." And I thought that was very funny that she came right off the page enough to entice this reader into wanting a date.
Interesting, Mr. Michael. So, does every book seem to take you on a similar emotional journey, or does each one have its own unique psychological fingerprint?
Well, I would say they tend to have different types of emotional journeys. If I'm thinking about Murder in the City of Light, it's about a father and working in a defense analyst job, and then it becomes personal. Don't want to spoiler alert there, but at the same time, it becomes personal. And that was a different emotional journey than I'd experienced because I have kids. And do you have kids, Daniel?
Yes, I do have.
So you know a father's protection and let's say their wrath if someone were to happen to their kids or someone to threaten them. And that became a little more personal, I think, to me. When I was dealing with the Stealing Thunder series, I was much more analytical and a bit more removed from the effects. I think it was more of a driven obsession to catch the bad guys. And so that became a bit more the emotion that I felt. And the book, Journey So Dreams May Come, it's very, very literary, has a basis in the film industry, and that became a book of a lot of wonder, a lot of sentimentalism to some degree, uh, personal memories that were involved there that I transmutated, I guess, into more literary work. So each one does have its own fingerprint in a way, and the book coming out in January has to do with a father and son in danger, and I have a son, so that became a very reflective state of what do I want this man to do and this son to learn in this very difficult, dangerous experience. So I'd say each of them are unique little mini journeys to go on as a writer.
Interesting, Mr. Michael. So, what is your overaching philosophy when you are entered to revision process? Are you layering in depth, hacking away the excess, or reconstructing the foundation?
I would say not necessarily reconstructing the foundation, but if it were like a house, I would definitely be, I might be moving a few windows and certainly selecting some of the ornamental elements and the furniture. I do tend, if I do a draft, it'll be wordy, and some of the connective tissue that I want to make it flow a little better is the kind of material where I might rework paragraphs into having a little stronger opening sentence and a definitive conclusion on that paragraph. Also, once I've written a draft, I could actually step back and look at small sections and be able to say, what do I really want to get out of this? And it might be emphasizing a particular point a little more. So sometimes I can see in a paragraph that there might be two or three ways to do that, but one of them is definitively better than the other. So I will indeed hack away. And I think one has to be rather ruthless in that in a lot of ways. If you think of your words as precious, you're never going to get anywhere until you get down to the very last revision. In the case of Murder in the City of Light, I went through, I would say, about five revisions. So the initial draft, then I put it down for a little period of time and then hack through it, get it down to its essence, like boiling down a nice liqueur. Then I'm able to refine it more and more. And in Journeys So Dreams May Come, that took a very long time to finish because the words just weren't coming. And so finally I was able to finish that book. And that was a very meticulous process because it was meant to be very literary and whimsical and magical realism in that tone and style.
Mr. Michael, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my Bible verses 101 in its first season, book 101 review in fifth season 2, comedy 101 in third season, and food 101 in its fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101, love letters in fourth season, as well as my movie 101 review and music 101 and science 101 and sex 101 in its second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Michael, beyond publication and reader response, what is the most profound personal reward you get from the process of writing itself? Is the part that keeps you coming back to the blank page, book after book.
I would say it's the idea that I've conceived a particular scene and then seen it realized on the page. And there's an enormous satisfaction in that to be able to put into words exactly what's coming out of my head. I think a lot of times we have a lot of abstractions and distractions in our brain. And so each scene just coming to that realization is certainly the most satisfying that one can feel. And then when somebody reads the book and says, "Wow, I that really took me on a journey of mystery or thrills or more," then that's the thing that keeps me coming back.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Michael. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Daniel. Much
Yes.
appreciated.
Then can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your books, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Absolutely. I hope that they would like to come back and go to my website, creativeexplorer-michaelmandaville.com. You can also find me up on Amazon, and I'm on Twitter and Facebook. And look forward to your support and enjoying the books I've written. Thank you so much. And thank you, Daniel, for having me.
You're most welcome, Mr. Michael. Yeah, so let's support Mr. Michael Mandaville because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Michael, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
What can people see you soon? Again, Mr. Michael, thank you so much for